The moment something started to feel off, there is a strange sensation many people share but rarely talk about out loud. It feels like the world didn't suddenly break, but quietly shifted while no one was looking. Life still moves forward. Stores are open, screens are bright, technology advances, and yet, beneath the surface, something feels fundamentally wrong. Not chaotic, not accidental, but oddly organized. Every generation is told that it's living through unprecedented times, that uncertainty is normal, that confusion is part of progress. But this moment feels different. It's not just that things are changing, it's that the changes seem to follow a pattern no one officially acknowledges. People sense it when education feels emptier than it used to, when culture no longer aims to elevate but to distract, when health systems treat symptoms but avoid causes, when entertainment numbs rather than inspire, and when the future, despite all our technology, feels smaller instead of bigger. Most explanations offered by media and institutions feel shallow. Economic cycles, political polarization, generational conflict, climate anxiety. All of these may be real, but none of them explain the deeper pattern. They describe the surface, not the mechanism underneath. Because what if the modern world isn't collapsing at all? What if it's doing exactly what it was designed to do? Throughout history, people believed decline looked loud, empires falling with fire and violence, cities burning, systems collapsing in dramatic fashion. But real control rarely announces itself. It works quietly, efficiently, and without panic. The most effective systems don't destroy people directly. They create environments where people destroy themselves through choice. And that's the key detail most narratives miss. Look around. No one is forcing you into anything. You're free to eat what you want, watch what you want, believe what you want, and live how you want. Freedom has never been marketed more aggressively than it is today. But freedom without direction is not liberation, it's filtration. Every system that ever wanted to manage large populations eventually faced the same problem. Force creates resistance. Control creates rebellion. But choice? Choice feels personal. Choice feels empowering. And choice is the most effective filter ever invented. When people fail under force, they become martyrs. When people fail under choice, they blame themselves. And so the question isn't who is controlling us. The real question is far more uncomfortable. What if the modern world is a silent experiment designed to see who can survive abundance without destroying themselves? If that sounds extreme, consider this. For the first time in history, humanity has access to enough food, energy, technology, and knowledge to eliminate most forms of suffering. We could feed everyone, house everyone, educate everyone, heal most diseases, automate the worst labor. This is not science fiction. The infrastructure already exists. And yet, instead of paradise, we get burnout, anxiety, addiction, loneliness, declining birth rates, fragmented families, eroded attention spans, and a growing sense that life is becoming less meaningful, not more. That contradiction is not accidental. A system that truly failed would look chaotic. This one looks stable, predictable, profitable, and increasingly selective. Modern society no longer pushes people upward. It offers endless ways to drift downward comfortably. And most people accept the offer. Not because they're weak, but because the environment is engineered to reward short-term pleasure and punish long-term discipline. The system doesn't need to eliminate anyone physically. It simply waits. The question becomes unavoidable. If this is selection, then selection for what, and against whom? To understand that, we need to stop looking at today as an isolated moment and start seeing it as a phase that only makes sense when viewed as the final stage of a much longer process. A process that didn't begin with collapse, but with creation.
How the world was taught to think the same way. Before a system can filter people, it must first standardize them. You cannot select efficiently from chaos. You need a baseline, a shared framework, a common operating system installed across millions of minds. This is where most people misunderstand history. We're taught to see human development as a slow, organic process spanning thousands of years, civilizations rising and falling, knowledge accumulating gradually, morality evolving naturally. But when you examine the actual evidence of mass social behavior, something doesn't add up. For most of recorded history, human societies showed little concern for what we now consider basic moral instincts. Childhood was barely recognized as a protected phase of life. Empathy was selective. Violence was routine. Human life was cheap. Then suddenly, within a remarkably short period of time, everything changed. Compassion became a value. Human rights became a concept. Childhood became sacred. Education became universal. Moral frameworks standardized. Nations agreed, more or less, on what constituted progress, civilization, and modernity. That kind of global synchronization does not happen naturally. It requires infrastructure, narrative control, repetition, and powerful tools capable of shaping perception on a massive scale. Enter the era of mass cognition. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, something extraordinary happened that history books treat as entertainment or cultural trivia. World's fairs, massive exhibitions, entire cities constructed temporarily, filled with symbols of progress, technology, culture, and history. Millions of people passed through these spaces, and what they experienced wasn't just innovation, it was orientation. They were shown what the world looks like, how nations are arranged, what progress means, who is advanced and who is behind, what roles exist in society, what technology is normal, what the future should resemble. These exhibitions didn't argue, they displayed. They didn't debate, they normalized. The human brain absorbs images faster than ideas. Show someone a giant globe and they don't question the model. Show them machines, uniforms, flags, architecture, and social roles arranged coherently, and the brain fills in the logic automatically. People didn't leave those exhibitions educated, they left aligned. Later, cinema replaced exhibitions. It was cheaper, faster, and infinitely scalable. You no longer needed to bring people to the model of reality. You could bring the model into every town, every village, every home.
Cinema didn't just entertain, it trained emotion. It taught people how heroes behave, who enemies are, what love looks like, what success means, what failure deserves. By the mid-20th century, the human operating system was installed. People across continents shared similar assumptions about time, history, morality, ambition, and identity. They believed in the same past. They desired the same future. They feared the same threats. This standardization made something else possible: sorting. Once you have a unified system, you can test it. Universal education wasn't designed primarily to enlighten everyone. It was designed to stress test minds, to overload young brains with abstract concepts and see which ones resonate. Most people struggled. A few thrived. Those few became engineers, scientists, architects of the modern world. They built nuclear power, space programs, computers, medical breakthroughs. The 20th century was an explosion of human capability because the system successfully identified and amplified rare cognitive traits. But here's the part no one talks about. Once the knowledge base was complete, once the infrastructure existed, once the breakthroughs were achieved, the system no longer needed mass genius production. And systems that no longer need a function do not preserve it out of sentiment. They dismantle it. That's why education shifted from depth to credentials, from mastery to compliance, from thinking to testing. The sorting phase ended. The filter moved elsewhere, from the mind to the body, from intelligence to lifestyle, from ability to choice. And that brings us to now.
The era of quiet elimination. The most unsettling thing about the modern world is not what it forbids, but what it permits. You are allowed to eat food that barely qualifies as nourishment. You are allowed to consume endless stimulation without meaning. You are allowed to redefine identity endlessly while disconnecting from biology. You are allowed to avoid responsibility indefinitely. Nothing stops you. That's the test. In previous eras, survival required strength, endurance, discipline, and cooperation. Today, survival requires restraint, clarity, long-term thinking, the ability to resist convenience. This is not accidental. It's evolutionary pressure adapted to abundance. The modern environment offers thousands of off-ramps from continuity, from health, from family, from reproduction, from legacy. None of them are framed as threats. They're framed as freedom. You're told fulfillment comes from consumption, not creation, from experience, not responsibility, from identity, not continuity. And if you follow that path, nothing bad happens immediately. Life remains comfortable, even pleasurable, until the line ends. No descendants, no transmission, no continuation. From a system perspective, this is flawless design. No force, no resistance, no backlash. People self-select out. Those who maintain physical health despite abundance. Those who form stable families despite cultural pressure. Those who raise children intentionally. Those who teach them how to think rather than what to repeat. These individuals become statistically rare, and rarity is the point. The future doesn't need billions of people. It needs a smaller population capable of maintaining complex systems without collapsing under distraction. The silent experiment isn't asking who is loudest, angriest, or most expressive. It's asking who can remain coherent when everything invites them not to be. The world is no longer sorting for intelligence, it's sorting for discipline. And discipline cannot be imposed, it must be chosen. Every day. This is why the modern era feels strangely calm and hostile at the same time. There is no open enemy, no declared war, just a landscape filled with choices that slowly shape outcomes. The experiment doesn't care what you believe, it only observes what you do. And in that sense, the future is already being written, not by governments, not by corporations, but by millions of small, quiet decisions made by individuals who either maintain continuity or opt out of it. This isn't collapse, it's selection, and the system is watching patiently.